You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's show, where it's our privilege to show up with you and to bring you stories and insights and get you thinking a little bit, get your day moving, get your feet going, get your mind working, and see what's possible for us to create in our world today. So I'm excited this week to talk with our guest, Paul Boerger, author of The Alchemist Way. He's not only a visionary writer, but also a seasoned technology leader, innovator, with a remarkable background in engineering and multiple patents to his name. But before we bring Paul on the show and share his story and dive deeper into the story behind the stories, I got to ask you to help us out. Get over to your favorite podcast apps, YouTube, wherever you're consuming social media. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Something as simple as commenting on social media posts helps us reach more people, and it helps us as a movement reach our goal of becoming one of the most impactful podcasts in the world. That means we're a group of people that are collectively coming together to make the world better through storytelling, sharing information, connecting, supporting each other's causes. And that's pretty awesome that in today's world where everybody wants to, where so much time is spent nitpicking and fighting with each other, that in this community, we're trying to make the world a better place and leave our mark. So please get over, like, subscribe, share wherever you're following us, consuming us. Be engaged, help us continue to grow, and then let me know what you think of this week's interview and conversation with our newest friend, Paul Boerger. The Tactical Harmony Podcast is hosted by Rebecca Fitzsimmons, a former NCIS special agent turned holistic leadership coach and mindset strategist. Drawing on nearly 20 years of experience empowering high-achieving professionals to break barriers and lead with purpose, Rebecca shares tried and true strategies and actionable insights to help you excel in today's fast-paced world. If you're ready to lead with impact and create harmony in the chaos, the Tactical Harmony Podcast is for you. Available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or check it out at tacticalharmony.com or in the show notes below. Paul, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Jerrod. How about you?
I'm amazing. I got to tell you, looking at that log cabin in the background, that just gives me the woodsy vibes right there.
Yeah, this is your old stomping ground, too, over here. So, yep, it's a log cabin over the beautiful Carter Lake behind me. It's just south and west of Loveland, Colorado. So,
I love it. It's so funny, right? We're connected now on Zoom, and we literally lived within about 10 miles of each other for years.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Paths never crossed, but they were meant to cross now, and I'm excited to bring you on the show. I'm really excited about your background, your new book, The Alchemist Way, and really exploring the innovation, not just in technology stuff, which you're very good at with multiple patents and stuff, but how we tie that into innovating ourselves as humans and continuing to evolve as people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is the very seedling of growth. And I love the fact when you talked about innovating, it's like who we are and where we're going. It's like, and that's really was a large part of the impetus behind the Alchemist Way. So this is going to be great.
Yeah,
look forward to this, Jerrod.
I do. And you had a special request. You did your research, which I always appreciate when guests take the time to research coming on, making sure we're all a good fit. But you wanted a special warm-up question. In one of your emails you sent me, you had talked about the warm-up question, because we like to warm up. We don't just jump right into the heavy lifting here.
I love that.
And so let's get you warmed up, Paul. You wanted to be asked sunrise or sunset.
The reason why is because my entire team, we do these icebreaker questions as well.
Yeah.
And every single one said sunrise. And several of your guests also have an affinity or a penchant, I think, for saying sunrise. Whereas for me, it's the exact opposite. If I had to pick one, it's definitely sunset. And because in the mornings, I'm kind of rigorous to my morning routines when I do get up, and I love them. I set the direction for the day. I pulse. It's like and work it hard. But in the evenings, when the shadows start growing a little bit longer, I love that light, as that happens. And we start seeing that over the city and the shadows of the mountains. And then right about then is where we pour either a glass of wine or a martini and turn on candles. And
Mm.
that's when I know that's the official finish to my day. We sit down and that we have a great conversation at then, and I know that that's it. So for me, it's always going to be sunset.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. I love, and I love beyond the questions, everybody has a reason why they like one or the other usually, right? There's a special, like you said, there's almost a ceremony to it.
Exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
the rest of the day gets pretty scripted, but that's when everything shuts down. That's when I
Mm.
start relaxing.
All right. What's a quote that's stuck with you or kind of guided you through times in your life?
Hmm. I'd have to say one of which is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, do something that scares you every day. And then there's another one that talks about this ship. The ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. So the two kind of go hand in hand. I think
Mm.
there was a point in my life when I realized, life is kind of a scary thing and you have to embrace it and be scared and still move forward anyway.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I like that quote. And I also like the one, there's one that builds off that says like calm seas don't make great sailors or something along that point, right? Like you got
I
to
love
get your
that.
ship out to the ocean, but you also got to face tough seas or you're not going to be challenged.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've had periods in my life, it's like where all of a sudden I got scared to move and I got stuck in the comfort zone. And I read one time this meme, it said, comfort zone is where dreams go to die.
Yeah.
And so I try to avoid that like the plague going forward, making sure that I am trying to stretch myself, make sure I am moving in the direction of some growth or some goal. Because for me, I can't separate the two, happiness and progress. They're symbiotic with me. And once I've got progress in any direction, whether it's better health or whether it's better relationships or better wealth, I love growing in every facet of life or growing a skill. And with that always brings that seed of happiness with me.
Yeah, no, I really like that point that progress brings happiness. I think most of us thrive when we are improving in some facet of life.
Absolutely.
All right. What's a song that's stuck in your head or on repeat currently for you?
It's funny you should bring that up. It's um, I grew up in the Midwest in a tiny, town, and uh, I didn't know what I was going to do with life. And then 37 years before, I guess, in the last May 10th, my daughter graduated with her undergrad in mechanical and aerospace engineering. And that kind of reflected back. It was exactly 37 years to the date that I had gotten my degree.
Oh, wow.
And the only vision I had for my life at the time, so she's got direction now. The only vision I had was, oh my gosh, was I guess stemmed from a song. And there was a band called REO Speedwagon. And they were touring and they got stranded in Colorado in a Rocky Mountain snowstorm. And they wrote that song, Riding the Storm Out.
Okay.
And that's actually how I ended up here in this cabin. Because I knew I paid my own way through education, through college. There wasn't much opportunities in the Midwest. And I thought, gosh, if I got to go somewhere, I had this vision, just a tiny A-frame cabin on a high mountain lake in Colorado, and during a Rocky Mountain snowstorm while listening to Riding the Storm Out. So we had some bad weather coming in. It's like, and so here I've enjoyed over the lake. It is kind of an A-frame kind of shape, but it's I do love REO Speedwagon's Riding the Storm Out for that very reason, because that's the impetus. That was the vision I was chasing when I moved to Colorado with only $60 in my pocket. And I had family and friends out here, and I thought, well, let's just try this.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me here.
Good for you. I love that story. And that's what I love about music. A lot of times music you hear a song and it takes you right back to a certain place in your life, something that was going on that song reminds you of.
Exactly. Yeah, there's always a lot of emotion. I'd have to say that music was probably one of my first passions.
Really? Did you pursue it at all?
Yeah, when I was younger, for sure. And my last 2 years of college, I played in this country rock and 50s band. This band had been around about 15 years or so. And I auditioned, and I never played in this type of band before, but I auditioned for the lead guitar for it. And we played all around every tiny town around northwestern Minnesota and northeastern North Dakota for my last 2 years. And for me, that was a lot of fun.
Oh, very cool. What was your go-to song? What was your song to close out the show?
Oh my gosh, believe it or not, it was just one of those, a couple of dance tunes, I'd have to say. Um, uh, it was Probably Bachman Turner overdrives. We did one or two songs. It's like,
Yeah.
we're taking care of business. We played about 200 songs. It was, I guess, our total repertoire.
Yeah. Very cool. It's so fun to hear stuff like that. Stuff you wouldn't know. All right. What's a favorite book or a book you go back to when you just need a little bit of redirection in your day?
When I was 27 years old, I received this gift, and it was a book that I never really thought that I'd read, but it was a book by Dr. Viktor Frankl, and it's called Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
And this book is kind of divided into two parts, right? And it's like the first part, he's a survivor of Holocaust in both Auschwitz and Dachau. And it is just, I mean, it'll bring a tear to your eye. But he survived this, seen his whole family just basically get wiped out. And the second half of the book, he was a clinical psychologist, is about logotherapy, which is kind of reduced to man's search for meaning. And that was a book that impacted me because every time I get a situation that really doesn't translate or it's just not sitting well, I go back to that and I try to find the meaning in that situation. And that book is kind of a go-to as a gentle reminder that we do have to find meaning in our lives, in our pursuits as well.
Yeah. No, that's a great book. It's fun. I was reading something this morning. His book was quoted a few times in some research I was doing. So yeah, I think that book helps frame a lot of things, right? Because like you said, he was a Holocaust survivor and really had to be challenged to find meaning in what he was going through his days.
hmm Yeah, well, he talked about the first half of the book, some perfectly healthy young men and young women. Their first days at one of these concentration camps, they just lost hope. And they pulled the covers over their face and they passed in the night.
Yeah.
Perfectly healthy, but they just lost hope.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the book, it was like when they started talking about, he used this theory to help folks. Through it's like trying to find meaning from some of those were absolutely tragic as well. So
Yeah.
I think that that really did shape me. And also, if I lose perspective, I'll pick up that book. It's down in my library. It's it's all tattered and torn, but I've gone through that one quite a few times ever since.
No, that's great. All right, Paul, you get to have dinner with one person. They could still be with us or may have passed on. Who would you have dinner with, and what would you want to ask them?
Oh my gosh. Um, I think if I had to pick one, it would have to be Nikola Tesla.
Okay.
Nikola Tesla is one of the greatest inventors of all time, with a virtuous soul and more talent than almost any other inventor I had ever seen. And I've read several books about his endeavors, and I would like to ask him about his modeling and frequencies and numbers that he had specifically for the universe, as well as for his vision in terms of it was all AC. So he was the inventor of the AC power.
Yeah.
Went head to head with Edison, who thought he could do it with DC. But he did so many other fantastic things, including mechanical resonance machines and lightning creators. He had a vision for global power, empowering the entire planet. So I'd like to talk with him about some of those inventions specifically.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be a deep conversation. That'd be well over my head, but I just have to sit and listen. Paul, you feeling warmed up, my friend?
I am. I'm feeling good.
All right, let me start off here. Here's something I like to ask is people are successful. Like you've been very successful and you continue to challenge yourself and grow, moving beyond like innovating things and leading people to now sharing your lessons that you've learned through work to just general leadership of people in general. I'd say the Alchemist way. That's kind of the premise of that book, right? Like we can lead ourselves and reinvent ourselves. How do you stay curious when you're already successful?
That is a great question. I'd have to say it's because I'm always looking towards something new. I'm reading new materials. I'm always trying to find something, what's the new technology trend? What's the latest innovation in certain areas? And then I always think in terms of combination of elements and then how we can strive to get there. And that's the thing about new product development. We've actually got processes we've used several times as we're starting to explore new spaces. And we use a kind of a three-step process for innovating a category. We typically pull together big teams, and then we break us into groups of 4, maybe 5, And then we give little half sheets. We call it conceptualization. And we write down ideas. Okay, this is a great idea for this and this and this and this. Maybe we're looking at the next Internet of Things or the very next technology implementation, communications. And then after that, we go through a process called conceptualization. And that's where we take all of our little scraps or half pages of ideation and we organize those into key concepts. And we call it conceptualization. And then the last phase is when each team has to present those ideas out. And that's called, I just call it proselytization, where you try to sell the idea, the concept that you put together. And then you can get a lot of synergy coming back and forth, and people will bring in even more ideas in. And we've done that several different forums, but we typically call that something like the Innovation Design Jam. So in the technology spaces, we do that. And I think it's still important for us to do something very similar with ourselves and our lives. We have to innovate in every space I think that we step into. Yeah. And I try to do that weekly and for sure annually. So monthly, annually. But
do you have a process, Paul, that you sit down and kind of write some of that stuff out, or like how does that work for you?
Well, for me, I've got just a handful of processes. So I just quickly look at my finances, and then I take a look at this wheel. It's got 7 different facets about this wheel, and making sure that your spirituality is there, your intellectual there, your health and fitness, your relationships, and I kind of look at the wheel and I give myself a grade. And sometimes I need to make adjustments. Yeah. And then weekly, I do try to take a look at my habits. And I reflect, it's like, are these habits moving me closer to the goals that I set? So I do have processes, quite honestly. Sounds kind of geeky now I think about it.
No, I love it. Because I think that's Paul, I think like with your background, it makes total sense. And I think for a lot of people, that's a missing piece, or the harder part in holding yourself accountable is like, how do I do it? And when you have like you said, you have a wheel, that's a visual image for you to look at and go, okay, I came up short over here, or I'm doing well over here. Because I think one of the misconceptions of life is this balance, right? That everything's going to be 50-50. Right? Sometimes you have a big project going, or something takes a lot of your time. So now maybe your family only gets 20 and work gets 80. But if you take accountability, you realize, okay, as soon as this is over, I need to switch it up a little bit, pay it back a little bit. I think at times when it's only conceptual, it's hard for people to measure where they're at and to if you would take inventory of it and adjust it as they need to going forward.
Absolutely. And I love that notion, by the way, because I used to think that work-life balance was, okay, I do this much time here, here, and here, and I got to do these equal parts. Everything's got to play nicely together. And realizing there's just a few things I do have to do every day, but the rest of which sometimes if you've got a family member in crisis, that's going to take a lot more than that little allocated piece of time. And we need to be able to have the flexibility in order to give that. Sometimes the work will make demands on us. Sometimes we get a bad medical report and it's like, whoops, better get that back on track really fast. And so I love that notion of being able to have that flexibility, keep moving forward on all fronts. But sometimes life does demand a little bit more attention in one area than another.
Yeah, and if we're not cognizant of it, if we're not conscious of the evaluation process of it, sometimes it can just become the routine, and we don't realize that we've been tilted so far one way until maybe damage is done, relationships have suffered, or we're just so far down that we've lost track of that time.
Yeah. No, I do agree.
And I think it's important that you come back to that, right? Like, I think it's important that as we innovate with ourselves, which I love that term, right? Recreating yourself, innovating yourself, because every day you wake up, you have a chance to be a new you. You have a chance to do something new.
Yeah. And that's the ultimate freedom. And that's addicting, by the way.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's something. Once you get those creative thought processes and you start mixing up the days and you're moving, like I'm a big fan of setting a goal, using 3 C's of articulating a goal and then, making it as concise and as tight as possible into a virtual mantra, then infuse that with emotion. And that just fills me up a little bit. Yeah. And I love that. That excites me every time I start moving in a new pursuit or a new direction.
Right. Well, so here's a question for you, Paul. How do you always challenge yourself and always want something more, right? To achieve more, to move in a new direction. Balance that with being grateful for where we've been. Because I think sometimes people get confused between the two of, okay, I can't want more. I just got to be grateful for what I have.
Yeah. Well, I think gratitude is a huge part of happiness. I think that's one thing I try to do is center my day first thing in the morning. I'll get up, I'll pour a glass of water, put lemon juice and cayenne pepper in it. I drink that down and then straight to the coffee pot. And then I try to get myself centered for the very first minutes of every day and identify top 3 things I want to get done and that I want to layer on top of my habits. And for that day, and I try to do my very best to make sure that I've got something to be grateful for. And it shifts my mindset, especially if you're going to be leading a team. You really can't afford to have too many off days. I mean, everybody's entitled to have one, but that's something as a leader we really don't want to bring because people are counting on us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's super important as a leader. And it's something I stress too is one of the biggest tenets you have to have in leadership is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, go ahead.
Yep, I was just going to say, you got it. And that's one thing that I do encourage you to look at because our habits, our daily habits especially, and that's why it's so important to start that morning routine. And because a routine is nothing more than habit 1 plus habit 2 plus habit 3 plus habit 4, right? Yeah. That creates our daily routines. And I encourage everybody to take a look at your routine, what you're doing every Sunday, and say, gosh, is this moving me closer to where I want to go? And it's something that it's like taking care of a garden or plants. You got to make sure that you just stay on top of that one. So that's one thing that I'm a big fan of. So habits give us the consistency that we need to move towards that goal.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good point is reflecting back on, did we move ourselves towards our goal? Did we maybe lose track this week? Did we have something come up that pulled us off course a little bit that we got to reconnect and recalibrate? The other thing I go to is you got to remember when you're leading people, they deserve the best you every day, whatever best you that can be. And when they come to talk to you, there should be a consistency in how you're going to respond.
Absolutely.
Which starts with you being consistent with yourself before you even get to them.
Yep. And that's where, vitality, especially when you're moving, when we lead ourselves somewhere, it's like it all starts from where I am to somewhere I've never been before, or a team, you're trying to bring them from where they are to somewhere they've never been. And that is really the essence of leadership. If you don't have a need for change, you really don't need a leader in that whole process. But that consistency, that energy, that vitality will also make us prioritize our health and above almost everything else, because if that's gone, it all starts with physiology. So you got to watch your diet, activity, and nutrition and rest. And keep that front and center. Make sure those habits are supporting that as well.
So So I was going to ask you, that was a question I had later on, because you emphasize vitality and energy as key components of leadership, right? That's something you believe in. So
absolutely.
What advice do you have for people, especially in today's, let's stay in the tech world where you're at, where things are moving so fast and so rapidly, and it's easy to put our personal health kind of on the back burner because we've got so much to do. What advice do you have for people?
That's a great question. And this is where I've gotten into trouble. We
I like getting in trouble.
Beliefs. Yeah, it does. It's because inevitably, it's like when we're doing new business creation, oftentimes we find ourselves working way too many hours. And the first thing that goes out the window, exercise, activity, nutrition, and my diet just falls apart, right? And that's where I've made that mistake too many times. But the energy that you bring to your goals is vitality. So prioritizing that health, the diet, the exercise, the nutrition, and rest, because all of vitality starts with physiology. And especially if you're trying to bring a team, not everybody's going to show up having the very best day. And I think it's so important, if you really want to lead this, or if you want to lead yourself to a better life, vitality is where it starts. It always starts with physiology. And it's also not just about the physical energy, but it's also about the mental and emotional resilience that we bring to every challenge, every setback, and of course, every victory. So we want to bring energy to it, whether it's our families, our communities, our neighborhoods, or our friendships. And I just can't emphasize that enough, because I've made that mistake one too many times.
Yeah. So how do you
making the wrong trade-offs?
Yeah. So how do you do that for your team, Paul? Like, if you say you got a team, you're leading a team, and you can tell the energy's low. Maybe they've been working too hard. Maybe they need a change. What are some strategies you do to reinfuse energy for your teams?
That's a good question. Always go back to the 3 C's of goal setting. We take a look at the goal. And so we're not only articulate it, but also making sure that we got the emotion. And that's where the energy kind of comes in. And then also, the first thing is, if you've ever set a goal, right? The first thing that happens is the seeds of self-doubt.
For sure.
Always kind of pop up shortly thereafter. And we've got between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day. Over 80% of those are negative, and over 95% of those are repetitive. So we have to rewrite that narrative. And that's one of the things, if you're trying to motivate someone, is you can't just create a goal, but you also have to make sure that you've got the proper narratives in place, because beliefs beat doubt every time, and they enable our vision for success. So oftentimes I got pretty creative with slide decks in the past. Make sure that they see the vision as to where we're going to go, because not everybody's going to believe it at first. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, now I can see where I'm going to put my fingerprints on this. And I think the Bible said it best too. It's like, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah.
And the faith and the belief will give you that preview to your goal or the life maybe perhaps that you want.
Yeah.
We revisit those two things, and it's like, let's revisit the vision and take a look at it, and then try to figure out where we're going to contribute to it. So that's usually what I try to do.
Let me follow up on that for a second with you, Paul. I love what you said there. You go back to a slide deck and you show them the end creation of what they're working on.
Yes. In fact, we go into planning sessions. I'll say at a very high level, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stand up this component inside of the cloud. We're going to have full stack. This is going to be interacting with all this various ecosystems. And eventually we are going to connect the user to the device, to the infrastructure, to the services in the back end to create a very compelling solution. And sometimes we all need to see that. And it's like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget.
Yeah, I think that's such a great tenet in leadership, is make sure the people you're leading know what the end product's supposed to look like, or what it's going to be, so they understand everything they do, every little thing that maybe I'm bogged down today and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. But if I remember how important the little thing I'm doing is to the big thing at the end, I'm invested.
Yep.
Right? Too many times I think leaders want to tell people what to do, but the people doing the work don't know what the desired outcome is supposed to be.
Yep. And I think that's exactly right, because they want two things in my mind. It's like they want to see where they're going, and they want to see their fingerprints on it. So you show them this very high level image, and they can kind of see where they're going to fit inside of that. And the second thing they're going to be looking for is, do I have a guide? Do I trust this guide to get us there? And that's, in my mind, is just the secret sauce of leadership.
Yeah, that trust.
Is being able to give those two things. There is a component of trust, and that's all built on the bedrock of character.
So let's stay on that. What are the bedrocks of character? What are some things that you found successful in building trust amongst your teams? So to where I'm like, okay, whatever Paul says, like, I understand the importance of what we're doing. Let's go.
Yep. It's a constant test every day. They're seeing if you are. I love the way that the book, The Four Agreements, said it. It's like, be impeccable with your word. And that is really the foundation, I think, of character. It's like, the character to me means, well, the ability for us to keep a promise to ourselves. That's what character is. And in my 37 years of leading and managing teams, I've learned that character isn't just something that you're born with, per se. It's something that you forge, like steel in a furnace. Yeah. It's shaped by the heat of challenges, the hammering of tough decisions, and of course, the tempering of lessons learned through experience. So I come back to, you've got to be impeccable with your word. Keep promises to yourself and keep promises to others. And that is how the basis, the foundation of the team, because our top values are trust and respect for the individual. And what I found is then, of course, open, honest communications. And the very top of this pyramid is what I've kind of drawn in the book, is achieving common objectives through teamwork. And what I found is, if we don't have trust and respect for the individual, I cannot build a team. That's something it's a non-negotiable for me. So that's why character is so important. And also with your family. If you don't have trust and respect for, the individuals, you're not going to be able to bring your family to the very top level and be the best.
Yeah. So let's talk through a hypothetical here, Paul. Let's say we're dealing with a team that has mistrust in the past, just can't trust each other right now, but we still need them to come together as a collective and work for the future. What are some suggestions you'd have for our leaders out there on how to rebuild trust with their teams?
Oh, that's a great question, because in the past, I've inherited teams, some of which have got a high level of dysfunction. And that's very difficult. At first, when I was young, I had a really hard time that. But what I do is I meet with every individual of the team. And I try to learn as much as I possibly can. Like, can you describe as like a leadership style that works for you? Can you ever describe it's like one that didn't work so well for you? So I try to learn do you have any ground rules? What was your best day at work? How long have you been? What are your top strengths? And I learn as much as I can about this individual, but then I share my, what I call values. And again, it starts with the trust and respect for the individual. I'll be looking for this with the team. You're going to be accountable to this because we have to have this if we want to move forward. Then open and honest communications. I need that in a culture because that's how we actually build the trust among us. Then the next of which, I evaluate achieving common objectives through teamwork. And then I also tell them, it's like, I value taking risks. I value innovation. I value diversity on the team. And I go through all these different things. There's about 13, 14 different values that I lay down. And then what happened was now everybody knows. And I've always had a good reputation for building good teams. Now, every now and then you get someone that's not playing well.
Yeah.
Especially, sometimes we get these, quite a bit of ego sometimes comes into this. And they just leave, every time we come out of a meeting, they leave a jet wash of just dead bodies, right? So we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And, like I always said, as a leader, I think it's important to acknowledge that everybody's entitled to a bad day. But when I see a behavior again and again, or I see people around, it's like starting to collapse under the weight of it. That's where I have to have that crucial conversation where I'll say, in the spirit of trust and respect for the individual, in the spirit of open, honest communications, and in the spirit of achieving common objectives through teamwork or building a great team, I want to share just a couple of things and then I draw maps usually, and I'll say behaviors versus results. The results were either missing expectation or the behaviors are. And I'll sit there, put on the map, and they can see exactly where they are. And then say, in order for us to move to where we got to get to, I'm going to need you to go ahead and bring us from this lower left quadrant to the upper right quadrant. And I try to give them maps as to how they're going to get there. By shaping their behaviors or shaping their results, making sure they got the domain knowledge that they need in order to get there.
And how's that been received usually when you have those conversations with those folks?
It would shock you surprisingly well. People want to be guided into their, becoming the best version of themselves. And I felt so bad. It was like there was one individual, I just couldn't show up on time. He couldn't, it missed almost every commitment that he'd had. And when we had a layoff, it's like, and I showed him exactly where it was. And I just had to remind him, and we had to lose a few freedoms and things like that. But then when he got laid off, he came to my office because we had a big layoff. So it was not just, and he got caught in a jet wash of that. It wasn't because of anything I was championing for. But he came to me and said, when I really wasn't acting very professional, I love the fact, he said, that you gave me a path to how I was going to get there.
Yeah. You know what I loved, Paul, about what you just said there is when you called him in and you talked about, here's where you're at, here's where you're going to get to. One of the things you said is, we need you.
Yep.
Right. I think too many times when I meet with leaders and stuff, they want to tell me about this disgruntled employee or that disgruntled employee or this poor performing team. And one of the challenges I have is, were they that way when you hired them? And they almost always say, no, they were energetic. Okay, so then somehow along the way, they were allowed to get that way.
Yep.
Right? And I think it goes back to what you said. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like what they're doing is important. So when you simply bring me in and say, we need you.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't heard that in a long time. Maybe I haven't felt like you even care that I'm there or that you even notice I'm there.
I think, caring through the years, I've found out that caring is the currency of the team. People don't care about what you know. They don't care about how much, brilliant you are or what you've done in the past until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. And it's not until that point are you going to be able to influence anyone. And I think you hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Especially in today's world, right? The next generation coming up, bonuses and extra paychecks and vacations is not the tangible thing they seek as much as quality work and doing work that means something to them and that they're proud of. And if we don't provide it, they're going to go find a new employer that does those things.
Absolutely. And that's why, one thing I try to do is identify the strengths of the team. And I try to make sure the job assignments match that, because when you're operating from your strengths, you're going to show up. And especially if you get a chance to showcase those strengths among the team, or or elsewhere, even externally. It's like, it's so important, even with your kids. It's like, you just got to tell them, what a good job this is, especially. And what I found was, I don't know about you, but I worked on teams in the past where I had these managers that would nitpick everything.
Yeah.
And they'd say, they always want you to focus on your weaknesses. Now, when I read John C. Maxwell's book, it's like, no. And then, of course, these most recent books, it's like with this, know your strengths. And I work for this company that values that. And I was like, this is exactly how you do new business creation. And it's like you lead from your strengths, and also you coach people to their strengths. And instead of like focusing on them weaknesses, oh, you got to work on this and this and this. No, we don't have to. Let's get to the strengths as fast as we can. And that's the distinction between a great team and a mediocre team.
Yeah. How so? Like, make sure I understand. You're saying like a mediocre team, a lot of people are working on their weaknesses and not leaning into their strengths.
Oh, and they're feeling bad. Every time you do that, you don't feel good about yourself. It's like, oh shoot, I'm about a 2 when it comes to reporting, but I'm a 9 when it comes to sitting there, doing pencil whipping and ripping out equations, and telling folks how to do it. And if I tell them, it's like, oh, do you need to do better reporting? No, we try to complement this and move things around. But it's so important you operate from your strengths, and that's why we use a tool called Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool. If you haven't used it, it's fun just to see where you map on this. So that was something that was really important to me when I took this job with this other company just a few years back. So
yeah, I think it's also a great thing, Paul, that in life, a lot of times we want to look at our failures or our shortcomings and go, oh, okay, what went wrong? But we forget to look at the things we've done exceptional. Go, okay, how did that go so well? And what was I doing at that point? Let me redo these habits, right? Because success or coming up short, there's going to be habits and clues to both directions of why one turned out and one went the other way. And sometimes we forget to give ourselves a pat on the back for all the good shit we've done.
Amen. Yeah, I don't know about you, but it's like every time I get to feeling shaky about my future, it's like I try to look back. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to get through this. Trust the process, Paul.
Yeah.
Go back, take a look at your beliefs, take a look at your accomplishments, take a look at your goals. And that's where I start every time. It's like, oh, and it re-energizes me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's so much. If we look back at our life, those challenges we've had, the obstacles we've faced, that is the forging, like you mentioned earlier. That is the challenge that creates us, right? Like steel isn't created in a comfort zone. It's through heat and a process, just like we are.
Yep.
And at times we forget to look at that.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, life can be pretty daunting. And it's easy just to go ahead and like shutting the doors, and it's like, just getting operating in a safe and comfort zone as opposed to stepping into the life of adventure. Recognizing your strengths, recognizing where you want to go. And I think just stepping into that is such a big deal. Getting that ship out of that harbor.
Yeah. Yeah. And realizing, like, I love what you've said there, and the energy, right? Once we get doing that, once we create a little momentum of not accepting status quo, challenging ourselves to live life maybe a little differently, to live it how we truly want to live it, I think you're amazed at how many other people come out with you that were just waiting for somebody to show them it's possible.
Ooh, I like that. Yep. And I think that's the heart of leadership. It's when we're able to be there, and especially to help bring someone into the best version of themselves through some shared goal, through some shared experience. I think it's so important. And that's, I think, when you know that leadership really counts. It's like that's the most rewarding, because I think leadership is tremendously demanding. But it's also very rewarding. And I don't know. I think you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But one thing I wanted to touch base with you said a minute ago was that you get your team together and you let them know you're a risk taker and it's okay to fail.
Yes.
Right, because that is such a counterintuitive thing nowadays. We're so risk adverse, and everybody's so adverse to any liability or coming up short. How do we bridge that gap in today's world and encourage people to take risk, and that coming up short is just learning, not failing?
Yeah. And that was something that I reiterate that point again and again. And it's like every now and then, it's like we're going to make mistakes. Like Jeff Bezos, he hopes to just get 70% right. And I'm a big fan of, look, if you're not making mistakes, you're not running fast enough. In new product development, the market moves so quickly that I value speed. And Let's go ahead and just make the best decisions that we can. What I found is sometimes we can make 3 mistakes as we could, in a design process before I could actually do all the analytics to make sure that we got the exact right path. Instead, I can just go ahead and do it. Here's a quick, prototype. Boom. Okay, the direction's then set. And so I try to set things up like that with certain types of design of experiments, or just let them know. It's like, we can fail with this if we go. And I try to make it a safe space.
Yeah.
And I'm also very transparent about my mistakes as well. And that was one of the things I think that distinguishes the Alchemist way, this book, from almost anything else, is the fact that it shares a lot of mistakes. Everything I made with goal setting, with beliefs, with vitality, with character, and heart, if I didn't bring that to the table, as well as habits. And it's so important, I think, that we show a little bit of vulnerability in ourselves, and it lets the team say, hey, it's okay to take a risk here.
Yeah.
Guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, it makes you relatable, right? Like nobody's perfect, and sometimes I think too many people put this facade or this pressure on themselves. If they're leading others, they have to be perfect. I have to know all the answers. I can't say I don't know. I can't make mistakes. No, you can, and you should.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And not having all the answers, I think, is a big deal. So deferring, oftentimes, if you think someone else has got, a lot of strengths. I love, by the way, leading teams. It's like with folks that are a lot smarter than me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to do that much leading. Just pull out that domain knowledge out of them. It's like, and then contribute this and assemble them, and test ideas among the team. And inevitably, we always find out. We always end up with the best ones. The more we talk about it, and we do a lot of, I guess, what do you call that? Testing to make sure that everybody's on board. It's consensus building. And we got certain tools we use for that. It's like, and it's spectacular because it gauges everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, there's so much to it. And I kind of live by a quote that says leaders don't have to have all the answers. They just have to have the questions that lead to the answers.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Right. My job is to ask questions.
Yep.
And if I'm the smartest person in the room, to be honest, Paul, we're all in trouble.
We're in trouble. Hey, I'm with you. Yeah, shoot.
Yeah, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, because what the hell am I going to learn in there? All right, Paul, I want to know, was there talk to me about a moment in your career, your life, where you're like, hey, wait a second, I'm going to take these thoughts I have, I'm going to take the success I've created, and I'm going to write a book to share it with the world. What led you to that moment?
Well, it was a curious thing. I think I may have told you, on May 10th, 2024, I was at my daughter's graduation. And it was the acknowledgement, the realization that it was exactly 37 years to the date. May 10th, 1987. I was standing on a similar stage, receiving my diploma, awkwardly taking photos with my mom and dad outside. It was a Sunday back then. Not sure exactly where I was going to go.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my daughter. Part of the process, of course, I graduated, came out here. Within 3 weeks, I had a job at Apogee Robotics, and then as an engineer for them. Then quickly I went into to leading, and then I went into managing, and of course, most importantly, eventually became a father. Now, Alexa, my lovely daughter, she of course went into mechanical and aerospace engineering. So she carried the torch of engineering in a different direction. But I started to look back in mine, and even as Alexa was pursuing this, I said, you've got some real skills. I mean, you can do anything you want, Alexa, but consider some of these, because she had such a good affinity for math and science and physics. I mean, she was actually a great writer too. But a lot of folks would sit there and tell her, it's like, oh, engineering's pretty tough. If you don't know what you're doing, you better go home and play with your Barbies. Or they'd say, you know what, you should be a vet, or you should do, and they did anything to dissuade her. And that triggered this overly protective single dad. And what happened, what I realized, especially, women are going into these male-dominated environments. They're going to hear comments like that, and that's going to plant the seeds of doubt. And it took me a long time, and teaching Alexa, it's like just to rewrite that narrative. And now her technical skills are way beyond this, like that I think mine were. And but this was really my impetus for this. Okay, Paul, it's like you've learned enough through these 37 years, coming out of absolute, no money, Midwest, and absolute obscurity into this level of attainment. And I'd have to say that was really what I wanted to share. It's like, I know what, I'm going to take that domain knowledge of, innovating over 100 different products and services. And I learned so much about getting people not just to follow or drag them along, but to inspire them just to run the journey shoulder to shoulder with me. And that is so important. So that what I want to do is take that knowledge and give it to tomorrow's leaders. So early mid-career, actually, this will help almost anyone at any stage in their leadership journey, but especially for the young and aspiring people who want to step into STEM, but they're a little bit scared to. This book looks great. It'll take you right out of it. It's not your traditional leadership book. This one will bring out the best in you and also the best in others around you.
What was her response when you told her your idea?
About the book?
Yeah.
I don't think she thought I was going to finish it.
Really?
I said, Alexa, I got to do this. And I said, are you okay if I use some of your stories as well in this journey? Because I've got, I've been breaking down the complexities of all these different projects. But I said, I think I got this leadership thing down in a different model that's more digestible.
Yeah.
And she was like, Dad, I'm on board. So she was shocked when she saw that actually released last February.
Okay.
And she was really pleased though. So it was quite a journey.
Yeah. And how's her career? How's things going for her now?
Great. Alexa loves international travel. And her master's program is just perfect. She's working with so many different students. She oversees the senior design project for engineers. And so they've got about 127 students in 26 different teams. And she meets with them. She did at least 30 minutes a week, helping them direct their senior design projects. And that just helped grow her skills and collaborative nature of that, because that's what she does for the university there. And she went to Spain to present a paper among the academics. And then she also, the reason she got her scholarship was because she had a very successful senior design project going to Africa to help them solve some very specific water problems. And so she's doing a lot more travel than we were ever expecting. And she loves it, by the way. International travel is her gig. I think she went to, I want to say 17 countries last year. So
congratulations. That's a proud dad moment, right?
Yeah, I'm annoyingly proud, but it's that's what I want. I just want to see her. It's like be able to solve her own problems. She's setting her own direction for life, and I just get to sit back and be a cheerleader. So for me, I feel really blessed.
I love it. All right, Paul, your book, The Alchemist Way, explores 6 core tenets of leadership.
Yep.
Which one? You can only give one to our community of listeners today. Which one do you think would be the most challenging for them to embrace, and why?
Well, I'd have to say it would be our habits. So I mean, it's important that you set the goal with the 3 C's, build the beliefs, have the character in order to do this, bring the energy, the vitality, but the habits give us the consistency we need to move in the direction of our goals, because consistency conquers all. It conquers intensity. It's like if you were to go to the gym one time and just nail it with maximum intensity, a few days later, you're not going to see any results. But when you have the habit of going to the gym, day after day, month after month, year after year, you're going to see the results are extraordinary. And because I'd have to say the habits, they not only beat intensity, they beat fatigue, perfection, depression, distractions, and also it enables the compound effect. And when you are on your journey to success, that's what you're going to want. You're going to start seeing it's like, okay, like much like the gym, and same thing with the team. You can get up there and have one great speech, but or a family. But when you connect with them at a very serious level, you'll start seeing you're building trust and respect. And it's like, and you're seeing open and honest communications and achieving common objectives through teamwork. And the habits give us the consistency that we need in order to move ourselves in a direction where we want to go.
I love it. I love it. Paul, it's been awesome having you on the show. And before we wrap up, I just want to ask one more question. If you could go back and talk to the Paul that moved to Colorado with $60 to his name, just believing he could make it, full, doubts and insecurities and all the stuff that comes with us in life, what would today's Paul tell young Paul?
That was actually the impetus for the book, because I wanted to go back and hand that to me. That would have accelerated everything, the insights that I needed, the trust that I needed. I mean, I would have gone through a lot of obliterated self-doubt. And so that was something that I would probably go back and I'd have to say, Paul, these are the 6 core tenets that's going to take you from where you want to go to where you are, to where you want to go. So I'd have to say that would be it. Would just
Yeah.
hand myself the book and just say, go. Because I was hungry. I had no mentors. I had no knowledge. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't even know an engineer, except for the goofballs that I graduated with. And I don't know. So for me, I was like totally unknown and totally unsure of that next step.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I love digestible, like 6 tenets. That's plenty that people can, it's encompassing, it's wholesome, but it's not this insurmountable number that there's no way they can reach the end of, right? And I think sometimes we overcomplicate so many things in life. And life, like you said, is pretty simple. It comes down to our habits. What are we doing to move the needle for our lives?
Agreed.
And it starts there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like you, I like your reflection on Sundays to look back at your week to see where you've been, and that accountability piece is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're measuring something, whether it's your weight or whether it's your strength or whether it's your, your hikes or your runs or whatever, it's like, it's a good time to go ahead and take that measurement and then reflect back. It's like, am I moving closer to where I want to go, or am I moving further away? And that's, like I said, that can be health, wealth, or could be relationships.
Absolutely. Paul, thank you so much for joining us this week. Where can our audience connect with you to either pick up the book, just follow you along in your journey, and be there for you?
Very good. Yeah. So The Alchemist Way, Unveiling the Secret Formula for Success in Life and Business, is available at Amazon.com in both Kindle as well as paperback. You can also go to paulboerger.com, and you'll have links then and to learn a little bit more about the journey, as well as it'll give you links to the book itself. The book itself is also available at thealchemistwaybook.com, and you can sign up for communities there if you want. And anyway, that's how we connect. So either way.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Paul.
It was an absolute pleasure. Nice chatting with you. Take care, Jerrod.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.